Welcome back to Slothbox. This channel is proudly sponsored by Lionpool Security Services and the Excelsior Sporting Club. This is James Luckton, delighted to be joined with Ken Shamrock. Ken, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm very good, thank you for asking. Got a big show coming up, October 27th, Valor Bare Knuckle 2. Let's talk about a little bit of a venture of yours that you've got into. First of all, a big background in wrestling and MMA. So why did you decide to go for a venture in bare knuckle boxing? What was your vision and what do you see in bare knuckle for the future?
Well, I think there's a long plan here. Obviously, I've started out in bare knuckle, no holds barred bare knuckle. And, when they first put the gloves on, guys, I thought, oh, great idea trying to protect guys. But then after you get into it for a while, you realized it's not what they were doing. They weren't putting gloves on to protect the guys that were getting hit. They were putting gloves on to protect the guys that were doing the hitting. And to me, that kind of started that whole process through my mind as I was a fighter. If I ever got a chance to turn that around, I would, and bring back that bare knuckle. So I think with Valor, basically, we just want people to get educated about what bare knuckle is. I think is the first step, because there's this stigma about bare knuckle being dangerous, and me as a fighter, I'm confused because I'm looking at, because I fought all kinds of ways with gloves, without, with tape, with all this. And I'm thinking to myself, the most dangerous way of fighting, in my opinion, is when you tape your hands and you put a 4-ounce glove on. It's a rock, and you can't hurt your hand. You could punch a guy anywhere, enemies a lot of times, and not do that. And I just mind-boggling to me that we're calling it safe. So I just decided, you know what, when I had the chance of changing it, and that's where Valor comes in. I built a great team. We got a really great team around us. We partnered with the FOP, which is, we're very excited about having them involved with us. But really, it comes down to really about, bringing back the purity of boxing. Boxing's been taking a hit now because of gloves, right? It's just not the same when you're looking at the mixed martial arts area. Boxing seems to be so slow. And so by taking that glove off and taking the tapes off, which is not more dangerous, obviously it forces you to be more accurate. And with the rule sets that we have, with no cages, no ropes, there's no tape, no gloves, there's no clinching, it forces this action. And so if you put a Valor bare knuckle fight next to an MMA fight and you watch both of them, you will see a huge difference in how fast Valor bare knuckle is. And it used to be the opposite when you talked about boxing and mixed martial arts or no holds barred. People would say, man, you put that on the same card, you get one guy coming in a boxing match, another guy comes in. MMA is just so much faster. It flips it now that we brought that in. And my whole concept was to come in, because I love boxing, I've always been a boxing fan, is to come in and bring that back, give it a resurgence. But the only way you can do that is by keeping up with the times. And that is take the gloves off, take the tape off, and make it more pure God-given talent. And now the fights are faster, they're more exciting, and it's rejuvenating, and it's a fan-friendly environment. So that's kind of where that Valor thing came up, and me getting into the bare knuckles because of the experience that I had throughout my career with how they were coming in and pushing the safety thing about these gloves, which was not true.
At the moment, especially in the UK here, bare knuckle is fast growing. It's rising very, very quickly. It's getting TV platforms. It's getting sold out arenas. Is now the perfect time for Valor to come in, show guys what bare knuckle is all about, and to try and take over combat sports?
It is, and I want people to understand we are different. Our vision is different. I mean, we're not trying to compete with anyone. We're trying to be different, right? And so coming in with Valor, the bout circle, with no ropes, no cages, already that gives the fans a much better way of watching fights. It's a visual explosion when you're sitting in the front row and you're buying those tickets on the ground and you're literally getting the seat you bought, not the other way around where you got these ropes and cages in your face, because they're much more bigger the closer you are. So for the fans, it's really an explosion for them to sit there and watch these fights. I know, I was there, I saw it, and it was unbelievable. And then to be able to add some of the rule sets, which engages more fighting, which is no clinching. That's going to take time because people are used to punching, and it's almost a natural thing to grab. So it's going to take time with being able to take away points and people losing fights because they're not going to obey the rules. It'll take time, just like No Holds Barred did, to be able to get people to understand these are the rule sets and they're favorable for you as a fighter because it forces fights. And then come in with no gloves, no tapes, which is pure, right? There's no tape on the hands. I'm not gonna let you tape halfway up the wrist. No, is no tape on the hands whatsoever because this is called bare knuckle, not half bare knuckle. So again, like I said, we're not trying to compete with anyone. We just want to be Valor bare knuckle, something that's new that people can experience for the first time or the second or third or how many times that they go and be engaged every single time. So that's what we're trying to go.
I mentioned at the start of the call, you've been involved in MMA, you've been involved in wrestling. You know, you was at WWF probably at its best times. You was involved in the very early days of UFC. You was involved in Pride. I can see how excited you are for Valor Bare Knuckle. For this, just tell me the differences between being involved in this Bare Knuckle and the other organisations and sports you've been within.
Yeah, the other ones I've actually been the athlete in the actual, circle or cage or whatever it may be. And now I'm actually on the outside being able to see that joy on these fighters' faces and the fans' faces and promoters and everybody that's involved in it on something new and exciting. And I've been through a lot of those things in my career of being first and being around things that are first. And it's exciting, man. It's something that's things you'll never, ever be able to experience again because they're first. So this is kind of where we're at with bare knuckle and why I went in this direction, even though I was in wrestling and in MMA and those other things I did. But this is an opportunity for me to create something. And I couldn't do it without my team. I mean, we got a great group of guys around me that I wouldn't be where I'm at without having this team around me, because obviously there's no way I'm going to be able to do a lot of this business stuff that goes on. That's not how I'm built. But being able to have a team around me that's able to support me in the marketing and the advertising and all the business stuff that goes around and building apps and all these things that go into it, we have a great team. And, we've had our bumps in the road, which makes it even more enjoyable because it wasn't easy to get here, right? There's always these things that happen and roadblocks that come up and different things that go on, but we've been able to navigate those and get to where we're at. So I think now moving forward is nothing but going to be happiness and joy. A lot of hard work, though. There's still a lot of hard work that has to go into this. And there's a lot of great fighters that we've got to be able to get to know over doing these tryouts. A lot of young talent, which is what we're trying to do in the beginning, is to find young talent and then nurture and grow them with Valor. We're not looking for big superstars, even though our main event, I believe, has got two of the best heavyweights in the bare knuckle industry. I'm not going to announce those yet, but in my opinion, from what I have seen in the landscape, this main event, these heavyweights are going to blow the fans away with this fight.
Fantastic. And you mentioned you're no longer the athlete. You're no longer in there competing. You're now on the outside and on the more business side, I suppose, and looking out and almost mentoring these people, I suppose. It's difficult for a lot of athletes to retire. You as an athlete for decades, a long, long time. Have you found this transition easier to stop competing, to be able to take part in something like this now?
It's difficult. I did it for a lot longer than most individuals, and most people say I did it too long. I stayed in too long. But again, when I walked away, I knew I was done. I mean, there was no doubt. There was no flicker of light. It was done. I knew it. And that's the way I always wanted to leave, was that because I loved it so much, I enjoyed it so much, it was my life, it saved my life. I had nothing, man. I mean, I was in a group home and I literally had no skill sets in the world other than, working with youth, because I was a counselor. I went through the home and all that, but I literally had nothing else. So fighting was that natural thing for me. So being able to do that, I never wanted to stop. Even to this day, when I walk into an arena, whether it's Valor or another area, it's like I went to the Logan Paul fight a couple months ago, and just you're never not a fighter. I'm never not going to have that flicker of competitiveness. I'm always going to be that way. But being able to be involved in something like this truly helps me stay engaged in the world that I love.
The last question from me, Ken. I know we're on a bit of a time scale. So last question from me. You mentioned there Logan Paul and influencers have started boxing and they're starting their own sort of boxing entertainment side of things. Do you think influencers later down the line could become bare knuckle fighters or MMA fighters and start doing what they're doing in boxing in other combat sports?
I mean, obviously we understand influencers, right? But that's to me, it seems like that's just a hobby somebody does, right? That they get on computers and they get all popular and they do those things, but it's no different than a lawyer or somebody else that gets involved with training and competing. And then all of a sudden they're in there and they're fighting, and now all of a sudden they're become a professional athlete. That's to me what it is. It's literally guys that literally got involved with something to make money and have fun doing what they're doing, but the side thing over here training in the gym, and then all of a sudden they got good enough to where they could be a pro. And I think that's where we're at in the world, where is that these guys that are actually doing all these influencer things are now training at 10 years old, 12 years old, all the way up till they're 21. And now they're getting into the sport that they love. And we're calling them influencer fighters because they have this. It's like, oh, this guy's a lawyer fighter. It's like, it doesn't work like that. People are just doing things in the world to be able to make money. And then they do hobbies or fun things that they like, whether it's influencing all these other things, but also fighting, right? It's the same thing. So I think that pretty soon will go away, because an influencer fighter is just putting a tag on somebody. They're a fighter. Like, they're literally a fighter. So I think that it was fun for a while, but I think now it's basically guys that have talent, guys that are good fighters that literally just happen to be an influencer.
Fantastic. Well, Ken, all the best of luck. October 27th, Valor 2. I wish you all the best of luck for the journey.
Appreciate you, brother. Thank you.